do out customers, I'm going to try and do something which I've never done before, which is finish on time. So I'm just setting expectations quite low. The second expectation is that I'm going to tell you some obvious shit. So if I tell you things and you already know this, then apologies. Will be some people in the room that won't know it. There'll be some people doing it really well. There'll be some people doing it a little bit, and there'll be some people that may have forgotten. So I'm just setting the benchmark low straight away around what I'm going to share. I'm going to try and do this in two phases really quickly. One around customer retention. So James is going to talk about business development. I'll start off with the retention bit, and then I'm going to talk about product development a little bit as well. So I'm going to try and rattle through this really quickly. This normally takes about 45, 50 minutes, by the way, so I'm going to try and do it uber quick. Apologies for the accent if you're not familiar with the Northern accent. My best friend thinks I look like Phil Mitchell but sound like Peter Kay. So that's me out of the way. No comments. So does everybody in the room, who measures customer retention in the business? Put your hands up if you measure customer retention. Right high. Put your hand right high. Oh, 2 people measure customer retention. Do you measure it on a monthly basis? Oh, quarterly. That's half a hand down. Sorry? Every 6 months. So I am going to judge. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. So one of the first things I would say, if you're not measuring your customer retention, you should be measuring it. Seriously. So forget about business development just for 1 second. Measure your customer retention. It should be one of your key monthly statistics that you look at. It's so important. In terms of the industry average, 50% of the customers that we built last year, you will lose this year. 50% on average. Varies a little bit by industry and service line and everything else, but you will lose roughly 50% of your customers last year from this year. So you've already got a big problem. The second aspect I'd just say is if you then look back another year going further back, that drops from 50% down to about 20. And then you go another year further back and it drops down to about 10. So recruiters are shit at keeping hold of your customers. I'm just putting it out there, being brutally honest with you. So if you're not measuring your customer retention, you should really be doing that. What I used to do, get your customer list from 3, 4, 5 years ago, get them on Post-it notes, have them over this side of the room, have a bit of a competition. When somebody brings that customer on board, they put the Post-it note over here and do a little incentivization around it. It's a really good way to engage your people around customer retention. Simple, really good. I did say I'm going to tell you some obvious things. The reason why this is really super important around your customer retention is you will find it a lot easier, stating the obvious, to sell to an existing customer than what you will do a new one. So a lot of the time, business leaders, business owners are on about BD, pick up the phone, do BD, call, ring Johnny, ring James, ring Paul. Just look at your customers that you've got. Look at where you've built, look at where you've got track record. Look at all the terms you've signed but not converted. If you want to really expand the net, rather than just looking at customers that you build, look at all the customers that you build and the ones you had roles on and you didn't fill. And then go back to those customers. So this starting off where we've got previous footprints, previous relationships, previous engagement, super, super important. It's one of the biggest missed opportunities in recruitment, in my humble opinion. Who's segmented the customer base in the last 12 months? Oh, we're getting half and a one. In the last 12 months? How have you segmented it?
Yes.
How?
Oh, how? Sorry.
Yeah.
So our industry is based on ranking. So all firms have different levels of ranking. That's one area that we would segment on.
Yeah.
Niche areas of law.
Yeah.
Working.
Yeah.
The patient data as well.
Cool, fab. So 3 bits of criteria. 3 ways of segmenting your customer base. If you haven't segmented your customer base in the last 12 months, I will judge. And that is not good practice. So you should be segmenting your customer base every year as a minimum. How? I'll show you. So I use 3 bits of criteria, power of 3. One is understanding what you get from the customer, which is 1 bit of the criteria. The second bit is where are you at with your customer relationship. And the third bit is based around the Boston matrix where the customer's going. So it's market share, market growth. You get those 3 bits of criteria, get it all on a big wall, and you end up with this really good picture on a big white wall, and everybody understands where your customer relationships are, and more importantly, which are the customer relationships that you need to invest time in, and equally, which are the ones you need to ditch. And if you've got enough at the acceptance stage or the contact stage versus loyalty and advocacy. So segmenting your customer base, really important. It's about, we do this, it takes about half a day, just over half a day. So it's a proper full, big exercise. It's a great way to get your team engaged. It's even brilliant to do it at this time of year, because then when they come back in January, it's all mapped out on the wall, and you've got a clear understanding of where your customer relationships are, and hopefully you've set some smart objectives about where you're going to get those relationships to. Smart objective, not an objective. I would say 98% of business owners write objectives, but they're not smart. You could drive an absolute bus through it. I did it yesterday with somebody. So I'm making sure it's a smart objective, really clear. It'll help you drive the results. So this is just a basic customer relationship map. It's something that I've used up until, been at the coalface of recruitment up until 4 years ago. And it's something that I did every year. And like I say, it's a great way. And I used to keep this alive. Every quarter I'd sit down with the MDs, directors, like, what are we doing? Where are we at? What are the actions? What are the measures? How will I know that's going to move forward? Why are you investing in that customer rather than that customer? Because not every customer deserves our time. We've got to be really clear on that. Service reviews. Who has held a service review with their top 3 customers in the last 12 months? 2 hands. I'm going to judge again. Why would you not sit down with your customers? Yeah, you see, go on, expand.
I would probably do, like, I think my kind of meeting pretty quarterly.
Yeah.
Probably harsh and more social than formal.
Yeah. We're good at that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. A service review for me, I hate the word service review, by the way, because again, it's corporate, it's wanky. And normally when you turn to a service review, it's me telling you how good I am and all the roles I've filled and have you got any jobs? That's not the point of a review for me. The point of a review is it's 20% looking back, 80% looking forward. So I was really good, right, at nicking other people's data, including Dave's. And I'd repurpose it, rebrand it, put my own spin on it. And I'd go in front and sit in front of HR directors. I'd be presenting about total talent management, the changing demographics of the workforce, skills shortages. I'd be talking about their EVP and how it compares to the external market, thought leadership, all this sort of shit. And I'd be presenting it, and people would say, Paul, will you come and speak to the board? Will you come and speak to the HR team? I always used to get asked that. And it was all because I was reading really good data, collecting it, presenting it, and passing it back through and repurposing it. Everest are brilliant, Gartner's good. There's some brilliant sources, like Staffing Industry Analysts. There's some great stuff out there. A lot of people don't have access to that. When you work in-house, and I've worked in-house, you suddenly lose access to a lot of information. Your supplies become really critical to that. Don't underestimate the impact on it. What does the industry average look like? Well, 32% of people haven't done a formal review. They might have sat down informally or met them for a coffee, but they've not sat down and done all this thought leadership and what's going on for you and what's keeping you awake at night and what's going to happen in your business next year. What will the skills look like? How will it change? None of those conversations. Jay talked a little bit earlier about innovation, and evolution was a word. And I thought it was a really cute word because we can't evolve as recruiters if we're not really clear what the customer's needs and pain points are. We just can't do it. You'll always be a contingent recruiter. By the way, as a contingent recruiter, is everybody contingent? Is anybody retained? A little bit fully? 25%. Good. So you accepted from this. Everybody else who runs and owns a business, you work for about 70 to 80% of the year for free. 70 to 80% of your time is for free. Can you think of another industry where you work 70 to 80% of the time for free? That's because you work all these roles and you don't get paid for it. The customer cancels it, they change their mind, they fill it internally, somebody else fills it. They decide they want something different in a different location. So you work a lot for free. That's a massive, massive issue for the industry. And I think it's about time the industry gets hold of this and does something different. Seriously. If you don't evolve, you're always going to be the same, doing the same old thing. Everybody in this room, Dave and I were talking this morning, this is like one of the shittest times I've ever known in the recruitment industry. So, you know, I can be positive, I can tell you everything's going to be fine, the sun's going to come out next month. It's pretty shit out there. But the recruiters that are doing well are the ones that are starting to evolve. They're saying, I'm not going to work 70 to 80% of the time for free. I might as well work half the roles and make more money because I'll be being paid for them or I'll fill them. It's absolutely the right mentality. So, looking ahead now, I think we're about to head to a perfect storm. Do I think the market's going to bounce back next year? No. Do I think we're going to see some growth? Yes. Do I think things are going to change? Yes. So, balanced view on the market going forward. What do I think? The skills shortage is here to stay. HR directors from every bit of research are saying their TA team has not got capacity to take on any more vacancies. That's good news for recruiters. Yeah, positive news for recruiters. It's one of the main concerns. Every bit of HR data that comes out is saying TA teams are going to struggle. Skills shortage, here to stay. Customers are looking more for solutions. They're bored with contingent recruiters. They're looking for something different. Jay talked a little bit around EVP and brand awareness, measuring it. There's loads of stuff you can do around that for your customers about giving them some intelligence. When I used to walk into pictures, when I was working at Interquest, I'd actually get my marketing team to do a little brand report, and we'd go in there and say, this is how your brand compares to all your competitors, and we'd give them some real good insights. I'd even tell them where they recruited from and where they lost their workforce to. I've even been sat in a room not too far from here, and an HRD has turned to the head of TA and said, why the fuck do I not get that data from you? Which was a bit awkward because he was a friend. But this is how we can use data to really get on the front foot and elevate those conversations that we have. And the big thing is increasing your fill rate. Massive, massive opportunity. So does anybody see this article about 3-4 months ago? Stephen Bartlett? No? Now, I'm not a fan of Stephen Bartlett, but he's tall, bloody good looking, and his voice is like, you know, I would go to bed with him, seriously. He's the coolest guy in the world. He came out and said that the recruitment industry was broken. And he said it was dysfunctional. The models were based around contingent recruitment, not about solutions. It wasn't using data, wasn't using tech. It wasn't focused on building the brand. And the speed and technology just weren't sort of connected. So I actually agreed with all of that. Now, his messaging was a little bit intentional because he just put a load of cash into an RPO business. So you can see where that conversation was going. However, I did agree with sentiment. I did think that is actually true. It's just that I think his intentions were slightly disingenuous. So what do we do? You can be in the Red Sea, as Jade said earlier, and just be one of many. I'd have done that as a Red Sea, by the way, if I'd have known you were going to use the Red Sea. So you can just be one of many and stay a contingent recruiter, but don't whinge in 12 months' time if you go, oh, the market's hard, I'm finding it difficult. Well, you're going to say that if you're just doing the same thing over and over again. You've got to do something different. So a couple of choices. Stay as you are. Jade has probably done all this and could probably explain it a lot better if she's done an MBA. So the product adaptation curve, where do you want to be when new products and services come out? You don't want to be a late majority, and you certainly don't want to be a laggard. Otherwise, you'll just be competing on price. So this is about trying to be innovative with your service. Think about your customers. Jade talked about customer pain points. Spot on. These are some of my top 20 reasons why organizations ask for help from recruiters. I'm sure there's a lot more than 20, by the way, but these are just my top 20. May resonate. You may know some customers that have some of these pain points. You probably spot one or two things that aren't on there, by the way. So understanding your pain points is really important. Think back to what I said before. If you're not measuring your customer retention and you're not getting in front of your customer, then how do you know what the pain points are? I didn't. I only knew what the pain points were because I was getting in front of them and I was measuring customer retention and I segmented my customer base in terms of understanding where to spend time and where not to spend time. If you do all that, then you can evolve. You can then start to think about what is it you can do that gives the customer a solution rather than a service. My passion, because I've been in this industry a long time, and specifically in the outsourcing bit, is in this RPO and MSP bit. So according to Polaris Research, not Paul Sharpe, and according to Gartner, whose data is very similar, this is a market that's going to explode. Dave talked about looking back over the last 20 years. If you also do the same, the one thing that has come back pretty quickly has been organisations needing some outsourced help. Not filling jobs, I'm talking about a service. Specifically, the last 4 downturns, the demand for RPO and MSP solutions has risen exponentially. So it's something to be aware of because this will repeat itself. It's a case of when, not if. The objective, just to be really clear, and this is where a lot of recruiters struggle, is when you move into the outsourcing world, you've got to shift your mindset because you're not filling a job for you and charging 18% or 10% if you're in charity work. This is about driving agency usage down and agency hires down, and it's about driving internal mobility up, driving referrals up, and driving direct sourcing up in that order. So this is where you have to think differently. If you understand the customer pain points, you'll get this quite easily. How do you do that? You start to think about your minimal viable product offering. There will be already things in here that you're already doing. So if you talk about strategy just for a second, some of you may be doing competitor analysis, you may be doing pay benchmarking, you may be doing some talent mapping. All those things are parts of what you would include in the strategy. A recruitment agency would sit in here, and it's that part of a process which is that long. So this is trying to step outside from being a recruiter and to think about being a solutions provider. It's within your gift to build this product offering and then have something to take to market. The more you spend time on that, you can nail it all down on a whiteboard, wrap it up into a service, and then away you go. Jay talked about Kano. It's Kano analysis. It's a Japanese guy. We actually use Kano from a product development perspective because once you've developed your minimal viable product, you then take it to your customers and beta test it and get some feedback. And then from there, you refine your offering. What normally happens when you go through that process is you find 1 or 2 customers that go, do you know something, Paul? If you did that, we come back and let me know. Because actually, I'm quite interested in it now you've talked about it. That happened to be at Collinson's, who were based at Liverpool Street, do all the airport lounges. I went and spoke to Bertie, who was the HRD up until very recently. Talked to him about thought leadership, some of this stuff. And he said, if you do that, will you let me know? 6 months later, he outsourced all his recruitment to me because I've planted the seed of thought. It's a really powerful tool. What percentage of your gross profit are you dropping to your operating profit, Jackie? Because you're the finance expert. Do you know the answer to that? Sorry? No? Does anybody know? This is the 4th time I am going to judge. Anybody know? Anybody measuring what gross profit you drop into your operating profit? About 1/3? That's really good. If you drop in 1/3, that's upper quartile performance. Yeah. Darren, do you know?
Yeah, it's about 20%.
So 20%, just above average. Yeah. So one of your other key measures that you should be measuring as a business leader is how much of your gross profit you drop into your bottom line. The average is, the actual bang on average is 18%, but 50% of recruitment agencies are converting less than 50% of their operating profit to the bottom line. So the key here is to obviously drive as much margin as you can to the bottom line by keeping your costs low and everything else. It's one of the key business metrics. So if there's nothing else you're doing, just make sure you're looking at that on a monthly basis. Super, super important. 33% upper quartile. Bob on. You don't normally see that, by the way. Well done. I'm just going to touch very briefly on pricing. If you speak to a recruiter about retained fees or outsourcing. They'll say, I've got a campaign, Paul. How do I price it up? I normally charge 18%. I think I'm going to go on at 16 because they're going to give me exclusivity. And I'll say, that's a load of bollocks. You do not do it that way around. So on the basis that most recruiters convert less than 15% of their gross profit to the bottom line, we reverse engineer it, we set a target, and we say we're going to convert 30% of our gross profit to the bottom line. And the way we're going to do that is work out what the cost of the service is, how much work's involved. This is really simple shit, guys, but nobody does it. Work out the cost of the service, put your margin on top, and that means you're going to be converting twice as much gross profit to your bottom line. And that works out your pricing. You don't do it the other way around. So really simple way of making a lot more money, but a different way of doing it. I'm hoping that's been useful. If there's one thing I would urge you all to do, I'll give you some data points there around customer retention, conversion of your gross profit to your bottom line. On the North Star website, on the homepage, on the right-hand side of the toolbar at the top is a quick business health check. It takes about 5 minutes to complete. If you complete it and put your data in, you will get the industry average in the UK against the top 13 business metrics that we think are the top 13 business metrics. It's a good time to do it because it'll help you identify any gaps so that you can then build a strategy around it for 2025, understanding how you compare to your competitors. Again, Jay talked about this. How often do we compare ourselves to our competitors? Well, we can't because nobody's going to tell you what the return on investment is to marketing or how much of the profit they convert into the bottom line, usually. But this is a really great way and a great tool for doing that, and it's free of charge. That's me. I'm going to hand over to James. Thank you.